Hey everybody, in this video I'll show you how to paint up the Frost Giant from the board game Blood Rage. Everything has been based in white, and I'm going to start off with a couple of layers thinned down of Caldeon Sky. So I'm going in here with all of the fleshy areas. I'm going to use a blue Frost Giant, and I've got this thinned down. I don't have to be too careful. I am going to try not to get into all of the different hairy bits. I'm going to have this guy have all of his flesh be blue and his hair, his body hair, his beard, all of that be white. You can see sort of how thin this is. I've got quite a bit on my brush here, and I'm just filling in all of these areas. I'm not concerned about his scars or anything because those are going to be blue as well, just filled in darker and all of that, like it's etched or scarred into his skin. If you do get the blue in on the body hair, don't worry about that too much. You can take care of it. Here you can see one coat, one layer of that thinned down Caldeon Sky. It's pretty patchy and blotchy, but that's okay because we're going to go back in with a second layer. Got it on his face, his hands, really just taking care of all of this. The second layer I've thinned down just as much. It's about 50-50, and I'm just using water. You can use a medium if you like. Just remember that if you're using a medium, most likely that's going to increase your drying time. And you want to make sure that it's fully dried before you add your second layer of paint. And I'm just coming in here, taking care of all of the fleshy bits, being careful not to get the paint onto the body hair. Here you can see those two layers, and that's really done a lot better for the look of his skin. Smoothed it out, made it nice and even. Now that we have those two layers nice and dry, I'm going to go in with my Drakenhof Nightshade and pick up all of the recesses. This is going to be my shadow, and I'm getting this one thinned down layer all over the place. Now we're going to go through and add some different layers of shading as well to really give us different areas, but in this one I'm just trying to get the shade onto the body. It'll naturally pool into all of the recesses and those scars. You don't have to worry too much. I don't want to get great big blobs all over the place. So I'm being a little more careful than I was with my base coats. So here we have that first layer of Drakenhof Nightshade. Now I'm only going to do one layer of the Drakenhof, but we are going to come back in with a different layer of shadow later. Now I got my good old Nuln Oil, and this is what I'm bringing into all of those bits of body hair and the beard. I'm laying this in there to give me all of the into the recessed areas between all of the different chunks and strands of hair. We're going to leave this hair white, and so we're going to need to come back later and clean this up, but this is going to give me all of my shading, give this depth and all of that kind of stuff. And I want to use this Nuln Oil as opposed to the Drakenhof just to make it stand out and be a little bit different. I don't have to worry about it spilling over too much. You don't want to be completely reckless, but you don't have to be super careful. Going in and laying in this shade. So there we have our Nuln Oil on all of the beard and hair and body hair. Now I'm taking it and I'm going in and laying this Nuln Oil in on the skin, but I'm only doing it along the edges, underneath all of the folds of the muscle and the skin, and right along the edges of where that body hair is. I'm letting it get into the lines of this scarring, but I don't want to cover all of the body. I want to let that let the blue, let the Drakenhof give me a different layer so that we have these three different areas of base, shadow, and then a darker shadow. So I am being a little bit more selective where I'm laying in this Nuln Oil on the skin. So here you can see those different areas. With the Nuln Oil nice and dry, we have sort of this three-step color gradient. Now I'm going in with my Teclis Blue I've thinned this down, and I'm picking up the highest areas of the skin, the places where I've got flatter muscle mass or larger spots. I don't want to take this all the way to the edge where I have my shadow from the Drakenhof and the Nuln Oil. I've thinned this down. I'm being a little bit more careful with where it is that I'm laying everything in. Since it is thinner, I want to make sure that it doesn't run off and get down into those recesses. I'm just adding another layer onto the skin. You see here, basically what we're doing is we're highlighting the raised bits of muscle and everything like that without letting it get too far down into where we've laid in our shadow. And we're going to go through and we're going to do this over the entire body, all of the skin, picking up everything. And this sculpt does have some of these little ripply muscle bits that are a little bit smaller, so just take your time, go through, find all of those. Where the hair is, don't worry, we're going to come in and find that later. So here he is with all of that new highlight layer. And finally we're going to go in with our Fenrisian Grey. And I've got a little bit different of a brush here, and I'm coming through and I'm taking almost a dry brushing technique. That's one of the reasons why you'll sometimes see my thumbnails got color all over it. It's because I'm pulling some of that paint off. And I'm going through an almost a dry brush technique onto the highest, flattest bits of his musculature in order to really get that to stand out. When I do go back to the pot for the color, I'm pretty careful with it. I don't get a whole lot on that brush. And then you can dab this off onto a paper towel if you'd like, or you can use your thumbnail. And you just real lightly and quickly bring it over the highest and flattest bits of the muscles. And there you can see all of those different layers giving us this nice blue-skinned frost giant. So now that we've taken care of that, what we need to go through is start to work on his hair, all of that body hair. And boy, this fella has a lot of it. I'm using this Formula P3. I really like their white. You've seen me use it a lot if you've watched these other videos. I've got a fine detail brush, and I am just pulling this along each and every one of these individual strands or locks of hair. This is tedious. This is going to take quite a bit of time, but the results for me are a little bit nicer than if you were to go through and just do a dry brush of the white. You get to really pick out all of the individual hairs, and I think it's going to give you a nicer look overall. And there you have it. Through the magic of editing, we can see what this looks like. This does take quite a bit of time, but the results absolutely are worth it. Going through and taking and finding all of those individual strands of hair. You can see I've given him a bit of a unibrow, and I've gone in and done the eyes as well already. Now I'm just picking out each and every one of those little individual teeth. Since his mouth is open, we want to see his nice big old pearly whites. When this figure is completely dry, you see I use my pinky finger to sort of stabilize everything while I'm on there. I've got an Eshen Grey, and this is what I'm going to use to lay in on this stone that he's picked up. Now in a future video, I'm going to show you how I finish this thing completely, including giving it some snow treatment and some flocking. But pretty quickly I'm going in through here. I don't have to be super careful until I get in the edges near his hand. And I'm taking care of laying in this Eshen Grey to cover the entirety of this stone. Now we do want to give this stone a little bit of depth, so I'm going in here with my Agrax Earthshade as the shadow, and I'm only putting this on the top of this one. It's going to give it a slightly different tone. It's going to give us some browns into this gray and white and black that we've got, and I'm only laying that in on the top. You're going to see the reason that I do that is because eventually this is going to look like he bent down and grabbed this rock and then pulled it upside down over the top of his head to throw it. So I'm only laying this shadow in on the top of this boulder It's sort of giving us idea that this top bit is what's been underground the whole time, in the mud and in the dirt. And he's ripped it up and holding it over the top of his head, which is why that's the piece that we see up above. We're going to go through with some paint and flocking to do something very different with the underside. It also means that down here below, it's the underside of this rock that he's standing on that gets the Agrax Earthshade. And here you can see them all finished up. Now we are going to have a future video where I'm going to show you how I do the rest of that boulder. And here's the finished Storm Giant from the board game Blood Rage by Cool Mini or Not. I hope you like this painting tutorial. I'm having a really good time putting these together for all of you. Don't forget to leave me some comments down below, like, share, and subscribe, especially sharing this around. It's really cool to see how much people are enjoying these, and hopefully they are helping you with these minis from the game as well as others. A huge thank you to everyone who follows and subscribes, and a big thanks to all of our Patreon patrons. I especially want to say thank you to Joan. We can't do these videos without your support. So if you'd like to help us out and support and get some ownership of Roll for Initiative yourself, head over to our Patreon page. Find a tier that's right for you, get some cool perks, and just feel good every time you watch these videos knowing you helped make them. But until the next tutorial, I'm Ryan. This is Roll for Initiative. Bye.